Right. Good evening, everyone. It's my great pleasure to warmly welcome you all to session 9 of our research methodology lecture series focusing on referencing and plagiarism. We're truly delighted to see participants join us from diverse academic and professional backgrounds, reflecting the strengths and uh, global reach of our research community. And today's session is particularly important for every researcher as it addresses the core principles of academic integrity, ethical scholarships, and effective research communication as well. Right? So, as highlighted in our research uh, decision material, accurate referencing is not merely a technical requirement but a fundamental responsibility in acknowledging intellectual contributions and maintaining credibility in academic work. So, alongside this, understanding plagiarism and its implications is essential in ensuring originality and responsible knowledge creation. And today, we are specially honored to have with us our distinguished research person, Ms. Yasodhara Premaratna, whose academic and professional expertise in business management and scholarly writing brings immense value of today's discussion. So her experience will undoubtedly uh, guide you in developing strong academic writing practices and mastering citation techniques and avoiding common pitfalls in research writings, right? So I also extend my sincere appreciation to each of you for your continued engagement and commitment to learning here, right? So your active participation is what makes this platform vibrant and impactful. With that, let us begin today's session and make it an enriching and insightful experience for all. Right.
Well, so I think it's good to go, right, Miss Hansini?
Yes.
Okay, right. So first of all, thank you for inviting me to conduct this lecture series. So we have had several discussions, and finally I selected this particular topic because I feel like I could share something about academic writing, plagiarism, citation, since it's very relevant to my professional activities as well. So just give me one moment to share my slides. Just hang in there for a moment. Right, so I'll reshare it once again. Right, should be all right. I hope I'm audible as well. So let's then get started.
Miss Yasodhara, we can't hear you. Hello? Hello?
Just one moment.
All right. Now it is audible.
Is it okay now?
Yes, you are audible. Yes.
How about slides? Is it visible?
Yes. Yes, it is visible. You can
All
continue,
right.
Miss.
Okay.
Right.
So please enlighten me in the section in case I'm not audible. Right. So we'll get started with the session. So as you could see on my title slide, my name is over there, and then my profession, I work as a lecturer in one of the leading private institutions in Sri Lanka, of course affiliated with UK universities. And so my education background is also available there. But somehow, my plan today in this session is to share the knowledge that I gathered all the way when I was conducting research, and also uh, my prior experiences. I was actually working in the publication sector earlier for about 3 to 4 years. So I believe I will be able to share some of the stories that I learned about these journals, and what they are specifically looking at. Maybe it's not visible on their website. So that would be my plan. So taking you to my objectives, I divided my session into three segments. So I'm going to start with integrity part, academic integrity, and then explaining what plagiarism is all about, because these two go hand in hand. Then gradually I'll take you to academic writing, and it will be an overview. So of course on this platform we can't write, we can't evaluate it, we can't edit it as such. But let me share some tips with you to keep your writing strong and especially academically sound. So thereafter, I'll take you through citing referencing technique. Of course, it's a technique, but as Ms. Hansini earlier mentioned, it's not just doing citing for the sake of citing. So you have to be very ethical in that case as well. Okay, so integrity. Now, this is something lacking in people, and as an employee, someone would lack integrity. So integrity is revolving around things like ethics and being truthful, also being fair. So, whatever you do, you have to follow generally accepted ethical principles. So, as people, we follow it. As employees, your employers might be expecting it. Now, here, what I'm trying to highlight is how can we maintain academic integrity? So, moving on. So, what's meant by integrity? I explained it a little bit. So, how can we maintain the integrity in academia, in research writing? So, of course, I pinpointed certain points on my slide. Through your writing, of course, you have to show your integrity. Now, we are living in the era of AI. So, when I'm conducting sessions to my students, usually, especially postgraduate students, they openly ask me, can't we use AI? Can't we use ChatGPT? So I'm of course not an expert in that technical side, but my personal view is that AI is not that intelligent. It has the intelligent term, of course, in the name, but I believe as people, you are intelligent than these technical platforms. Because I would like to highlight a few things. Looking at certain write ups ranging from diploma levels to postgraduate level students, AI summarizes things. Maybe there are advanced platforms by now to give you much more solid answers or write ups. They summarize. Sometimes it's very repetitive. So they try to give you everything they found. So they would explain something and then again explain the same thing in another manner with hypothetical examples maybe. So therefore, it won't be a good practice if you are writing for high quality journals who value uh, real research. Okay, but I would also like to mention there might be journals which allow you to use certain AI tools, maybe to fine tune your language. If you are not a native English speaker, they might allow it, but you have to contact them and ask them whether this is allowed. And also, you may have to declare that I've used, AI to fine tune my language as such. So that would be my idea on AI writing. But you can maintain much more solid integrity by being an original. Then the other thing is data usage. So you might be doing a qualitative research, you might be doing a quantitative research, but if it is primary data, you have to maintain the privacy of your respondents and participants. Because you can't be going around and telling, so these are the people I met, so they told me this, this is their profile, likewise. Especially in qualitative research, you are dealing with participants, not respondents. So always try to anonymize them if you are using their names in your write-up. So don't ever use their real name. Maybe assume a different name, or else you can go with some quotes. In quantitative research, you might be presenting results, of course, not exactly sharing names of participants as such. Um, and then publish data, secondary data available on websites, maybe textbooks, research papers. Always cite these things. So I also included citing under integrity because if you cite the things that you borrowed, you are showing that you understand this is someone else's hard work. So I'm acknowledging them. I'm not pretending these are my own findings. Okay. So along with these three areas, you have to maintain your ethical writing throughout your writing of the research paper. So that is something I could first explain you about academic writing and maintaining integrity. And then moving on, now having discussed about integrity, if you don't maintain it and copy things from already published sources, we can simply call it plagiarism. And now I would say it's an academic crime. So people do crimes and get punishments for that. In academia, when you're writing research, plagiarism is one such crime. So simply put, copying. So now I know this audience contains very novice, very novel researchers, and maybe the level of study that you are in is different. So I'm trying to cater to everybody here. So some people think Control C, Control V is the art of writing research papers or academic piece of writing. But there are so many platforms nowadays to detect plagiarism, this academic crime. Local, international, all the universities are using these platforms. They come in different brand names. So wherever this paper is, whatever the platform, they will detect it. So we call it as detecting the similarity index. If it is very high, so that's going to be a problem for you as a researcher. So let me show you a couple of things here. I believe that you have heard at least the software called Turnitin. Like if you have the raise hand option, I would like to, see how many of you maybe heard it. Not too sure whether you have this option. All right, okay, I'll switch my video off because it might impact the delivery. So let me just switch it off. Okay, so we'll continue in this manner to facilitate hearing more, the audibility. Okay, anyhow, whether you have heard it or not, there are so many software to detect it. So these are two sample reports from students of various levels. Now, onto your left, you could see that there is a screenshot actually mentioning 7%. So 7% seems like a very low percentage, but we cannot ever say this is okay. It depends on the journal you consider. So they might have different tolerance levels. So of course, you have to read their guidelines and see how strict they are with plagiarism. Now, onto your right, you could see another report. It's a similarity report generated by Turnitin. 51% similarity, meaning half of this person's work is not his or her work, right? So this is going to ring a very loud alarm to whoever the reviewers, chief editors, and general managers likewise. So what will happen to you if you do this? If you copy paste things and try to save the day, of course you might get a black label, right? Black mark in academia, and also the journal will identify you as someone who committed an academic misconduct. So you might get blacklisted from that journal. So you might not be able to reconsider submission even after, correcting your mistake. So that is one of the things. Now, next, what can we do to avoid this? So I was saying this is a crime, you can't do this, but then how to avoid it? So there's no shortcut to avoid plagiarism as such. You have to preserve uniqueness of your work. That's the only way to avoid this misconduct. So some of you might be international students by now, enrolled in various foreign universities. So they do have ethics committees. So they are very keen about this. They may call you for inquiries and you may have to answer why you did this. And in a very higher level like PhD, it might be a very much of a disadvantage for you. So at all costs, avoid plagiarism. So that is something I could tell you at this moment. Well, now I was talking about integrity. Then I was talking about plagiarism, something related to that. In addition, I'd like to recall a few other points, especially when you're submitting to a journal. You have to accurately submit your other details as well, not just the research paper. You have to also consider, you know, um, your author details. If the supervisor name is not there as a co-author, it might be a problem for you, right? Okay, so would you mind giving me about 2 to 3 seconds, just quickly. I'll be back. Just a moment. All right. Apologies for the interruption. I hope you can again hear me and see my slides. Please tell me if it is not visible and if I'm not audible. Well, so I was talking about submitting correct information to the journal because once I was dealing with an international conference. So after some time of the publication of the full paper, one person approached me, and he has been the supervisor of his student. But now he's saying that student did not include his name as a co-author in the paper. So if such a kind of a thing is heard by the journal, it might be disadvantageous for you. So that is another thing that I wanted to highlight. I guess I forgot it in the beginning. Well, so we'll see how to avoid this. So through this discussion, I'm kind of in a funnel structure. I'm taking you to academic writing part. So there we'll see how to maintain the uniqueness of your writing. Well, so on my slide, you could see several points, of course. First point, practice paraphrasing. So paraphrasing is a technique that you can use to keep the originality of your writing. I'll get into this point after this slide with some examples. But for the time being, paraphrasing is a technique that we can use to keep uniqueness of your writing. Okay, I'll elaborate it later on with further details. Next one, get inspiration from published articles. So one thing is, if you're interested in a particular journal, you can read previously published articles on this journal, like previous issues, recent issues, and read and see how the language has been used. Even the format. I think in the previous session yesterday, you learned about the paper structure. So you could get an inspiration from that style. Because if you familiarize with what others are doing, what other successful publishers are doing, authors are doing, you may be getting an inspiration from that. So that's another tip to follow if you want to produce a quality piece of writing. Thirdly, maintain the academic flavor. Now, earlier I mentioned about AI. So AI might sometimes destroy your academic flavor. So people are giving different prompts to AI, like give me a description as if you are explaining it to someone who don't know anything, or else give me an explanation as if a student is writing, likewise. But things can go wrong. So that's why I always ask not to use AI thing for writing purpose. So academic flavor. So use academically sound words. My next point is, of course, about it, the word choice. So choose words with some academic flavor. Now, in upcoming slides, I've given some examples as well. For example, if we say nice, we could say like one participant in the study said a nice thing. So it might be actually nice or something exciting. Of course, you can use a much more academically sound term, like let's say, as I just told, exciting, or else interesting, right? So that is what I'm meaning by maintaining academic flavor. Be formal, but I'm not asking you to use all the difficult words in the thesaurus. So if you try to unnecessarily exaggerate, it will impact the readership or the readers. Now, if we consider our journal Marginalized Communities and Social Justice, so it's based in Asia. So when Asians read these papers, like they should be able to very easily grasp what you are saying, plus rest of the world. Okay, so pay attention to word choice and also maintain the academic flavor throughout the paper. So I'd like to I usually use these examples to make it more understandable. These are not actually made up examples, certain things I come across when I deal with my students. So recently I found a write up about job rotation. It was related to HR. So job rotation, the student wrote as like, job rotation is a fun little dance. So then when I was reading it, obviously I know this is written by an AI assistant, not exactly my student. So this kind of small phrases can destroy the entire image of your write-up. Maybe the rest is quite okay, rest is perfect, but this one sentence can ruin your reputation and generate suspicions. Okay, so that's about the academic flavor and word choice. Then paragraphing. Logically, paragraph. Chunks of information might not be reader friendly. So, one cardinal rule in paragraphing is that you have to link first paragraph to the second. So when you end the first paragraph, you can use certain words to link it to the second paragraph. Some words such as next, furthermore, moreover, those kind of words can be used. And also limit one paragraph to one idea, and then in the next paragraph you can present the next idea. Maybe don't divide a single idea into two paragraphs, just present it one concise paragraph. So logical paragraphing, plus maintain the rigor. We'll talk about the rigor next. And cite adequately, not for the sake of citing it. Sometimes you might just try to fulfill the requirement, the citation requirement. Maybe not you, I'm not mentioning you are going to do that. Some people might do it just to deceive the evaluators, deceive the reviewers. You may include sometimes just a couple of citations. But what is adequacy? So no one can say there should be like 20 citations per page, 30 citations per page. There's no numerical limit. Whatever is not your idea need to be cited. So you will end up with certain high number of citations sometimes. So adequacy of citing is very important in quality writing as well, especially in academic research writing. In yesterday's sessions, I believe the literature review part was highlighted, and in earlier sessions, you may have gone through how to write a proper literature review, how to synthesize the literature. So keep in your mind, not only literature, all other parts of the paper need to be cited if it is involving certain ideas, models, concepts. That would be another error many researchers do. Some think that literature review is literature, so we can cite it. But methodology, we don't need to do it. Background, maybe we really don't need to do it. Right? No, everywhere possible, you have to cite. So those are some selected points only, right? So when you get into this sea of writing, when you start to swim, you will figure out how to produce a quality writer. Practice will make you perfect as well, and also inspiration from other quality articles. Now, apart from these things, I just found this interesting image on Google, of course. It has certain additional points. Do not use terms like I, we when you are writing, like I conducted this research, I found, we conducted, we found. It's not very formal. So alternatively, you can say the researcher uncovered or was able to find out, something like that. In some write-ups, you can use the term author, but never use I, we in your research writing. It makes it a little informal. So formal language we discussed, citations we discussed, and organization of paragraphs we discussed. And yes, unbiased, always backed by evidence. If there is no citation for a certain thing you are writing, it could be named as a claim. We call it a claim. Someone is claiming that something happened, no evidence as such. Okay, so these are some tips to maintain the quality of your writing. So far I think so good. So I'm just shifting to my windows here and there. I might not be able to regularly check the chat. So maybe at the very end, I'll check the chat and see whether I could, enlighten you further. Right. So we learned a few tips for writing, but yet to discuss the main part under writing, paraphrasing. Okay. All right. So in the above slide, in the previous slide, I mentioned about rigorous. We sometimes in analysis we call it a rigorous analysis. Like you have to maintain the depth, coherence, completeness of your writing. Without just touching the surface, you have to get into the details. Now, let's say you are explaining about a theory. If you are using a theoretical lens in your uh, research, so you may explain it a little with its assumptions. Of course, you may mention who introduced it, because if you just mention, let's say, I'm using this theory, or the researcher used this particular theory. There's a lot of theories, new ones, old ones. So readers might need to search for that theory a little more and know what it is all about. So maintain this rigor throughout your work, especially in your write-up. But I know there are word limitations to certain journals. But of course, on an average, for an empirical research, they might offer a decent word count. So unlike the abstract, which is a very summarized piece of writing, the rest of the paper you should maintain the rigor. Okay. Um, Now, something about word choice, which I already discussed with you. Just have a look. There are plenty of resources available online. Now, even on social media, these things are now trending. So, when you are a researcher, it's not always about books and research papers. Yes, you have to use it to show the quality, depth of your search for information. But even in on social media, you may find very interesting inputs to write your paper. Specifically, I would say if you are a qualitative researcher, I'm a bit of a qualitative research enthusiast, so that's why I might be talking about it a little more. Um, Certain things on social media even will give you research ideas, right? So use such sources to find this kind of words as well. So you can see a list here. So when you proof check your research paper, try to fix these, not an issue, like try to fix words, right? Maybe you left a few words which are not so formal, such as give. So give is a word that we usually use. So you might mention it on your paper, but you could change it to provide if it is suitable there. The other thing, the word so, we are using it a lot. We say like so, this happened, so likewise. But use words like therefore, and also there's a very advanced good word called thus, 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 which gives a similar meaning to therefore. So use the available resources and try to use it in your writing as well. Okay, so when you get inspired from already published papers, you may be able to find certain words like that. So, some examples for word choice. All right, here comes paraphrasing. So, what is paraphrasing? So, I just simply included it to this 3-step process. I'm not saying this is easy, because you are reading a lot before writing your literature, and even to find a good methodology you will read about a lot of theories. But finally, when you decide, okay, these are the things I'm going to write, these are going in my literature review, read that piece of work. Let's say it's something published on an international journal paper. Read it, then understand it. Don't directly copy paste it to your write up. Understand, rewrite. To further elaborate, rewrite in your own words. Own words in the sense you have to choose words wisely. So this is simply paraphrasing. Read, understand, rewrite. So how to rewrite it? How to maintain the originality? One thing, one tactic, you can use synonyms, right? Which gives the same meaning, of course. Use some synonyms instead of certain words the original author has used. But be very careful. Some synonyms are not suitable to that context, right? For example, once I figured out this word called auction. There was a write up, it was a marketing related write up. I saw the word auction in several places, right? So the student has tried to include a synonym. But auction is not appropriate at that context. So ideally it was about sales. So a much more relevant word would be revenue. rather than auction, because auction comes under the synonym list. Of course, when you right click on the word sales, you could see auction, but it's not context specific. So beware about that. Next, you can change the tense a little bit, like active to passive, passive to active as such. And apologies for the dog barking in the background. If you can hear it, something uncontrollable. We'll try to, manage it. So active to passive, passive to active. So your English knowledge, your ability to summarize, your ability to express an idea in another set of words will come in handy in that case. Okay. Then shuffle terms. What do you mean by shuffling terms? So you can change the arrangement of certain words. But again, if there's a process written in an order, then you can't, of course, shuffle these terms because it will change the whole meaning. But if not, if those are like standalone words, maybe separated by commas, you can shuffle it if there's no particular order, right? So you are trying to write in your own style in that case. Then you can use alternative phrases. You can also use some additional words when you are paraphrasing. But remember, don't add additional ideas. Just words to connect terms, connect sentences, or summarize two sentences together and write your own single sentence likewise. So again, try to practice. If you are especially a beginner, try to practice, not exactly on a paper. You can do it on Microsoft Word um, while seeing the original idea side by side. You look at it, you read it. In the process of understanding, you can rewrite it on the other side. So then you will become an expert after a couple of years, maybe months, maybe. So it depends. But as I mentioned, if you are a new or a beginner, this might first seem very hectic. But don't give up. Just hang in there. Just do it once again. And maybe you can take a third opinion or another person's opinion. If you have a supervisor, you can show it to them. I believe you have the ability to, contact them as such. It depends on their schedules, maybe. But try to associate people around you who are good at it than you and cross check a little. So they might be able to pinpoint several issues you had. So read, understand, rewrite. So here, certain things you need to keep in your mind. Don't ever change the meaning when you are paraphrasing, right? If there's a piece of news, you can't, of course, add extra spices to it. Your own ideas cannot be included to that paragraph. Then it's unethical, right? Because after paraphrasing, you still need to cite. So if you include your meaning, that citation will not cover your idea, right? So don't change the meaning. Do not add extra spices, right? So to summarize that explanation before showing you an example, paraphrasing means rewriting an idea in your own words without changing the meaning. That would be like a definition. Right. So now so far we were talking about maintaining originality. Then of course how to paraphrase. So here's an example. So to be much more relevant, I selected something very recent, and you guys might be from different backgrounds. So if I use like like a management definition or as such, it might not appeal to everybody. So I thought of talking about the current situation in the world. Now, on to your left on my slide here, you could see, I'll maximize it a little bit. This is something I copy pasted to my slide from CNN World News website. I've also included the link here just to prove that it's not my thing. So it's about Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz and then Asia getting affected due to that. And then due to this, the fuel cost may rise and airlines will increase their prices and consumers will suffer. So that's what included in these two small paragraphs. So you read this first. When you see such a thing, first read it. It could be about a theory or something else. Read it. And then try to write it in your own words while maintaining that academic flavor and all. Right? Now, this is a news piece, so I made an effort very quickly to paraphrase it. So I believe I'm giving the same idea here, right? So just for an example, as Iran has effectively closed the Strait of Hormuz, Asia is vulnerable as the region relies more heavily on oil and gas that transit the strait than other parts of the world, something like that. Now, this is my paraphrased content. Due to heavy reliance of Asian countries on the Strait of Hormuz for gas and oil transportation, Iran's steps to close access to it is making Asia more prone to vulnerabilities. So I've used some words like prone to vulnerabilities rather than just saying Asia is vulnerable. And um, they are using the word transit, so I'm using transportation. And in the next para also, I'm trying to use my own set of words like Iran maintains its iron grip on the strait. So using the iron grip, it's a bit of a dramatic way to write it because it's a news piece. It's okay, right? Iron grip, that you are having a heavy grip on it. So I used it as Iran maintains strict control, which is much more suitable for my academic writing, right? Now, sometimes with my students, I'm doing these exercises in the class, but this is not the place for that. Some of you might be enrolled in advanced courses as well, but try to do this, and you can check whether I did a better job, right? Okay, now I paraphrased. I used my own words. So, what is the impact? Right? So, very quickly, let me see whether I have any messages from the organizing committee, any important ones. Okay, no, right. Well, so we'll continue. So, what's the impact? Right? Why should we exert effort to write this on our own? One thing, after submitting your paper, you can peacefully sleep, I would say. Right? You don't need to keep any worries with you. Because if you know that you have copied something, your mind knows that sometimes this might get detected. So, will I get an email or a communication saying this is not original? Right? So, for your mental peace and for your interest in research, that might be a good reason to do this, maintaining academic integrity, and of course, to get your things published and advance in your careers and achieve things in your profession, maybe. Right? So, here's the impact. Now, I used a free plagiarism checking software. Sometimes some platforms are not 100% accurate. But of course, we can make use of these resources to a greater extent. This first paragraph, which is available on CNN World. So I copy pasted it on this plagiarism checking website, and it turned out 100% plagiarism, turned out as 100% plagiarism, as you could see here. Not only that, the source is also given here, right? So that's the very source that I copied it from. Okay, so that's the impact of copy pasting. It's obviously a negative impact. So take a look at this impact of paraphrasing. So I copy pasted what I paraphrased, and turns out it's 100% unique. Right now, we can, have some peace of mind. Whatever in academia or in research, you are good to go. Maybe your paper get rejected as a beginner, but still you did not receive anything saying that you did a crime, academic crime, right? So this is the impact. Otherwise, if I just explain paraphrasing, that won't be strongly communicate what I want to communicate, right? So that's why I thought of including this impact. Okay, so try this whenever you have time, and check it using freely available software website, and check for yourself. And also, having mentioned about software, you can purchase certain Turnitin software for your use to check whether it's raising any concerns. But if you are originally writing, you have a very less risk in that case. Okay. So that's paraphrase. So here and there, if I recall certain important points, I will just say it. Maybe it's belonging to integrity, but maybe I forgotten it at that moment, right? So yeah, the next section of the session is about citing and referencing. But before moving on to this section, let me also add a couple of points. When you are choosing the journal, see what's the origin. So I work with one of the journals based in UK. It is maintained by, it is published by a UK university actually. Sorry, not UK, in USA. It's a US university. Sometimes when we were negotiating and when we were doing special issues with them, especially from conferences I was attached to, some papers get rejected, and then the authors ask why and all that. They might get certain communications from the journal. Some journals even consider UK versus US English. If the journal is established in US and following US English, they won't accept papers in British English. So we know that British and UK English, there are some differences with regard to spellings and all. So that kind of tiny things are very important. Maybe they mention it mostly on journal websites. So don't think that it is an irrelevant piece of information. Read their website clearly, read their guidelines clearly, and do the submission, because they get a lot of papers annually. They get a lot of papers, so they have to maintain a rejection rate as well. Plus, if they feel like this is not going in line with our guidelines, without further search they will reject it, right? Quality might not be the only. Okay. Is there any message or right? Okay, no issues. Well, so that's it. Then let's move on to citing and referencing technique. Okay, When I say citing and referencing, there are so many styles used by researchers, recommended by journals, recommended by universities. Um, so we have APA, which is the American Psychological Association's recommended style. APA stands for that, American Psychological Association. Then we have Harvard style. Then we have MLA, Chicago, and in the field of engineering, we have IEEE. So, likewise, for certain fields of studies, different citation referencing guidelines are recommended. APA, as I saw and as I got the idea, Journal of Marginalized Communities and Social Justice is using APA style, recommending APA style. Especially in social sciences, APA is highly used. So I also work with this Harvard style a lot, especially UK based journals, universities are using Harvard a lot. So I'm not too familiar with other things like Chicago MLA, but let's talk about a little bit about APA today. Um, this technique can be explained for hours depending on the sources that researchers are using. There's a plenty of sources that you can use to gather information for your research. How I have planned this section is that I selected few commonly used sources to explain this, and I will give you a guidance on how to search further on this topic. Right. So citing referencing. So first we'll try to understand what it is. What is citing? What is referencing? There are two things. Which one is more important? Can we just do citing? Can we just create a reference list? No, these two concepts are equally important. Well, so we'll move on. Right. So first of all, what should you cite? I would say simply almost everything, right? But remember, in the analysis section, sometimes when we are explaining our own data, the gathered primary data, we might not be able to cite, but things like other people's ideas, theories, models, frameworks, facts, statistics, all these things need to be cited when you are writing your research paper. So now I've been a researcher, so I'm not perfect as well. So once um, one of my evaluators, one of my examiners found that I missed few citations uh, in my reference list. Like there was a little mismatch when I submitted a draft document. So they will go through, reviewers will go through these things. They will cross check. So they will send it for revisions sometimes, right? So mistakes happen, but we'll try to minimize the mistakes. So almost everything, it depends on the level as well. So if you are studying for a very high level, of course, pretty much everything, right? Okay. So what is this citing thing? What can we, how can we define it? So citing means providing reference to someone's work within the paper or within the text. Meaning, inside your paragraphs, your paper, we call it in text citation. Why? Because it's inside the text. So, when you read a research paper, you may see references to other people's work, especially in APA style, of course, inside a bracket. In some styles, it's just a number. So that number will link to a reference list entry, not a name. But in our style, APA, you will see a name with an year. That is the publication year. Okay. Then what's referencing? Providing full details of referred material as a list at the end of the paper. So let's say you're citing Philip Kotler in your paper. So Philip Kotler should be in your reference list as well. If you're citing, let's say, Saunders in your methodology section, Saunders should be in your reference list as well. There should be a match between citations, references. Right? If you included the citation, it goes in the reference list. Okay. Additionally, there's a concept, not a concept, like a thing called bibliography. So your list of bibliography, if you are creating bibliography, that might even include documents that you did not cite. Like you just read it for your understanding, but not exactly cited that person in your research paper. So that's the difference between a reference and a bibliography, right? So as I check the journal website, they require a list of references at the end of your paper. So everything you cite should be included there. Both these things should be followed to enhance the quality of your writing. Right. So to explain in-text citations, first let me also introduce direct quotation and paraphrased ideas. Paraphrased ideas we already know. We read something, we understood, and we rewrote it. Direct quotation means you are taking something as it is. Then the next question, isn't it plagiarizing? Like, isn't it going to get detected under plagiarizing? So when you quote, try to keep it short. If you're quoting something mentioned on another journal paper, especially with regard to definitions, try to keep it short and don't fill your write up with many direct quotations. Maybe someone can argue, I'm writing a lot of definitions here. These are definitions, so I took it, right? But you have to paraphrase like I would say 95% and over 95%, and a small portion can be used for direct quotations, right? So we'll see how this in-text citation technique can be followed. Okay, so within the text, so these are some examples for direct quotations. So if there's one author for your publication, you could do it this way. So if you are going with the narrative style, like starting with the author name, this person said this in his study, something like that. So as you can see on my example, right? Outside the bracket, you have the author's last name. We don't use first name, we don't use initials, we use the last name only. Then within brackets, we include the publication year. And then we go about writing that idea. And here's the page on that particular document on which page you found this quotation. But if you are explaining and then providing the citation at the end, this style could be used. Within brackets, last name of the author, publication year, and then the exact page. So this is something very commonly used by researchers due to the convenience, I believe, at the end of your work. But you can use a combination. The entire paper need not to follow this narrative style, but you can achieve a combination of these two. It will also show that you know different styles to cite as well. So when it comes to two authors, if the book or the journal paper is authored by two people, this is how you do it. In the narrative citation, first author's last name, you put the term and, then second author's last name, right? And then the year within the bracket, and rest is pretty much the same thing. And on the other side, you can still do it at the end of your idea, write idea and then include the citation. But note here within bracket, we are using and symbol, not and, the word and. So these are actually technical things. Citing what is not your idea is your major ethic, right? And making sure these little details come as it is in the citation style is the technical part of it, right? So make sure to follow that very clearly. Okay. Then more than two authors in some of the fields of study, many people together conduct research. Just a moment. Right. Okay. Um, so many people get together and do research. Sometimes, 10, 15 people might be there. So in that case, what shall we do? Are we going to write all these names inside the citation? It would be a little messy, and that's why this technique has been introduced. So you're gonna make it like this. Now here, I believe the name is pronounced Sendak et al. So et al is a terminology that we can use to refer to others. Sendak and others introduced this idea in 2001. And if it is a specific paragraph, you provide the paragraph number. So these are few technical things that you need to follow in the in-text citation. And make sure you only include author's last name and publication year. In some other styles, they use initials, but not in APA style. So that would be the method to format in text citations. Right. Then moving on, if it is paraphrased, if it is not a direct quotation, the job is a little easy. So I included a similar table with one author, two authors, and more than two authors. So this is what we do. So we don't include exact page number, paragraph number, just the author name and publication year. So this is not going to change according to the source, books, journals, same style. So that would be about in-text citations. Well, okay, all good, I guess. Just apologies. I'm sometimes looking into Zoom because when I see notifications, I feel like it's an important message. Maybe I'm not audible and all. Just a moment. Right. I think people are logging, exiting. That's the notification, I believe. Right. Okay. Anyhow, we have to live with this online technology now. No? Well, so that's about in-text citation. Right. Moving on. If it is not a person, what shall we do? If it is not a human author, let's say it's a company, institution, or even a supranational body like UN, WHO, and then ILO, likewise. So we can't really sometimes track who really wrote that report, who created that website content. That's not revealed as such. So we term these as institutional or corporate authors. So what you should do is use the name. of the organization. Remember, there's no such thing as last name, right? And now I've seen this being followed by some write-ups that I see. Now, if you say United Nations, some people consider, okay, the second word is the last name, nations. So it's nations 2026. No, it's a terrible mistake and it's a ridiculous mistake, right? So some examples are given here. So I used United Nations itself. Also, you can use UN because it's worldwide recognized acronym, right? But if it is not familiar to all authors, don't use your own acronym. It's better to use the extended term, right? This could be a company name. This could be an international organization like this, a government department, ministry, likewise. So that's about corporate authors. Multiple sources to support one argument. Sometimes when you read papers, you may have seen this kind of citations. So many names inside a bracket, which means that particular author has used several people to support that argument or the fact. Right? So let's say something about the current global unrest scenario. Several news channels might publish the same thing. So to prove that this is strong, like not only few, but many people, many sources are talking about it, you could include this sort of a citation. But not everywhere. Especially, I would say, literature review. In literature review, sometimes you have to uh, explain a concept, then you may be able to follow this. So, what you do is you just separate these citations with semicolons. So, first one here, Andrews et al., Andrew and others, 1996, and then Gillies 2007, Gillies again 2019. So all these papers or whatsoever the publication support your argument, right? Um, this is very important for, I believe, higher grade researchers. Maybe if you are following the PhD, right? I could just suggest this might be a good thing for you guys. Then we'll see what's there. Um, an example, of course, here. You could see a paragraph. Take a look at the first sentence. Ray and Kelly. This is narrative style, starting with author names. Ray and Kelly, 2014, so and so. Citation supports this idea. Next paragraph. Some statistics are there. So then again, at the end, you could see Ray and Kelly. This idea still is Ray and Kelly's idea, but you are using a different style at the end of the idea. Comma, the rest of the paragraph, another idea. It's supported by Collins, another person. But taken as a whole, this little paragraph has been well cited. Almost everything. All the major ideas are supported with citations. Right? So that's an example to show how it appears once you do it. So that would be mainly about citation. I'm not too sure whether I have another slide about citation over here. Yeah, secondary citations. So what is a secondary citation? Let's say you are reading a paper. I'll take the same example. This paper is written by Brooke. Brooke has cited someone called Lawrence and used Lawrence's idea in his or her paper. But let's say, unfortunately, we are not in a position to access Lawrence's original paper. Maybe we don't have access or it's not there, right? In such a scenario, you can use a secondary citation, but we are not going to use it everywhere. Otherwise, if we fill secondary citations a lot in our paper, then it looks like we are depending on another person's paper to find more citations, right? So either you can access this Lawrence's paper and read the same idea, or you use it in this manner. Two styles are given. So Lawrence 1 found no relationship between the variables as cited in Brooke 2003. I'm not directly citing Lawrence. I'm referring to Lawrence, yes, but it is cited in Brooke only, right? So that is secondary citation. Well, so now so far, if I'm to just take everyone on the same page, since I started talking about citing, I explained what it is, and then I started talking about the formatting part, which is using this bracket in narrative manner. The bracket only contain the year, and in the other style, we include name and year inside the bracket, right? So that's what I believe you're gonna get this material, and then you can have a look maybe, right? So without further delay, let me take you through the rest of the presentation. Since we started a little later, maybe about 10 minutes later, I hope I could buy that 10 minutes after 8:30, right? Um, Another in-text citation format, one author, multiple work. This example has WHO, World Health Organization. One idea was published by WHO in 2012. Okay, fine. Then in 2015, there are two documents, right? Maybe two reports. So the first one is going as 2015A, second one is going as 2015B, right? This is very important inside the text. Otherwise, we'll be putting 2015 WHO everywhere, but it refers to different documents. Okay. Well, so different sources, different citation styles, combining many citations together, secondary citations. So these are the things I discussed so far. Right. So next we'll go through referencing part, which is about formatting your reference list. Of course, we put it at the end of the paper, but I would say it's easy if we create the reference entry while we are citing. Because sometimes tomorrow your laptop might get a virus attack, it might, get fall, unfortunately. I wish it won't happen, should not happen to you, but it happens. And of course, when we are in a hurry, computers understand, they start to get updated, all the things happen, and we might lose our tabs, right? So these tabs are very important. So uh, it's better to format the reference entry then and there, or at least if I don't know, it depends on the time and everything, you can at least maintain a separate document for your URLs, especially for web material. Then at least you can later access it. So I chose few famous and like popular sources that we use in research, especially in journal publications. We go with textbooks for theoretical things, and for empirical things we go with research papers, right? So that those two would be the main one, but additionally we may have websites, news articles that might support our point. So this is referencing a book with an example. So it is just placing these information in the right order. So you have author name, last name, initial, year, in bracket, title of the book in italics, and the publisher. So this is for a typical textbook. But you can add the URL at the end of reference list entry if the book is something that you read online. If it has a DOI or a digital object identifier, which is almost like the identity card number or identity of a book or a research paper, you can add it here. Right? And if two authors, you may format the name this way. So separate the two authors with the symbol and. If three or more authors, you go in this format. You place the authors in order, and before the last author, you can put an. Right? So that's about creating a reference list entry. This would be the technical part, which you need a little bit of care. Moving on, journal articles. Now you would understand some of the things are very similar. Name, year, okay, that was similar to the earlier one. Title of the article, like topic of the article. Then journal title or journal name in italic, right? That is a formatting thing. Then of course the volume and issue number. Volume and issue number is available on every journal paper, usually on the header or the footer, right? So it would say volume 26, issue 8. It's a technical thing with regard to a journal paper. It depends on the number of volumes you have published in each year, and then number of issues you have issued per year within the year, right? Then the page range on the journal. What is the page range of this particular article? Page range. Finally, the DOI. DOI again, digital object identifier. So journal papers do have this unique number for them. So this is it. This is what you need to do. So taking you further, this is about an electronic newspaper, e-newspaper. Two authors are there, separated by and sign. Year, but there's a small difference. You also go with the month and date because news are published on a daily basis, not like books and journal articles. Then the article title, and then you have the URL, and this is the newspaper title. The arrow is heading to this, the Guardian Australia edition. That's the newspaper title in italic. Finally, the URL, right? And I forgot to explain this indent thing. That means these three lines are indented to the right. This is usually how we do it in APA, but some journals require you to number the reference list. So in that case, you might not be able to do this. Okay. Web page. So this is an example. There's a human author for that particular web page. And as usual, you could see the year, date, title, then over here, website name, this one, and finally the URL. Okay. So, yeah. So those are the major things that I picked. I could fill the entire presentation with many examples like this. So I would share some tips with you with regard to referencing because I was advised by the organizing committee to share some reference management tools as well. First one is APA guidelines are freely available for us to read on many journal websites and university websites. So you can pick a very renowned, reliable university, right? And the journal Marginalized Communities and Social Justice is also providing a reference to APA, so you can go through that and read it before making your submission. There are so many manuals created with so many examples for different kind of sources. That is something you could do. Then formatting of citations can be either done manually or you can use a reliable tool. Why I mention reliable is that some of these tools are not giving us what we need. There are so many tools. So I've come across this, and some of my students came across this, and they thought it's the right style. But always, even if you are using a tool to generate your reference list, cross check it with the recommended referencing guideline, which is published by, now in this case, by American Psychological Association. Cross check it, and manually you can maybe do some edits as well, right? So I just coined a few tools like Mendeley, and then you have to download it and install it to your machine. Then Zotero, it's free, I guess. Yeah, it's a free one. And there are some other tools called Cite This For Me, Cite This Right. But there are limitations, like sometimes you will have to purchase these tools, or free trials are available, and afterwards you have to pay and upgrade. For some versions of referencing style, they don't allow free usage. So that have to be figured out. So I included a screenshot from one such reference management tool here. So I used the APA 7th edition. So here, now this is not working like it's a screenshot. You have to put the URL of your document, the DOI, likewise, and then you can click and see. So I was able to generate this one. So I checked, apparently it goes with APA 7th edition guidelines. And then you can take it to your reference list. So that is mainly it. So now my session's objective was, according to Blue Ocean, was to talk about academic integrity and share some tips, then to talk about plagiarism, and I also talked about the detection software and repercussions of plagiarizing. Then I turned towards the citing referencing technique. Of course, you can do many self-study. YouTube is there, Google is there. Some good resources are available as well. So you could make your knowledge thorough about it. So that's what I was prepared to do, and I hope I was able to communicate it effectively, I suppose. And I may have, I believe, at least shared one new thing or an experience that I included in my session. So,
Yes, Mr. Soja, but there are few questions in the
yeah.
chat box as well. Would you please,
Okay. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Let me check.
yeah.
Right. I could see. Let me see. Okay. Just of course, about the access to presentation, I think you will get it from organizers. Yes. Just a moment. I'm reading the chat. Okay. Someone asked, changing only words is enough, or we should have to change the whole sentence. So when we, of course, use alternative words, automatically our sentence will get changed. Now, I'll share one more thing. Now, these plagiarism detection software are actually using a macro. It's a technical thing, right? So if there are any IT people here, they would definitely know what is macro more than me. So they run macro on your submitted paper or the assignment. So the macro is technical. They have fed, okay, check. Now, in my understanding, check every 3 words, every 4 words, right? So they go by 3 by 3 by 3 or 4 by 4 by 4. I'm not too sure whether it's 3 or 4, right? So let's say you only changed first 2 words in the sentence and the rest is the same. And you thought, okay, I changed here and there, the job done. But no, due to this macro, they will, detect the rest. Okay, first 2, okay, unique. The rest of the words, let's say 4, 5, 6 words together, is similar to some other content, right? So I think Rashid has raised that question. So I hope I answered that. So try to understand the macro, the concept about macro, and make your changes throughout the sentence. Okay. Maybe you could leave a message whether I answered your question. Can we get the recordings? Okay, I think organizers will answer that question. Then there's another question about okay, using AI in drafting a paper. Is there any benchmark of using AI in writing a paper? So this is, I think, something I earlier highlighted as well. It depends on the rules, regulations of journals, universities. While some are very strict on it, some might be a little flexible, right? Even if a small portion of AI is detected, sometimes they might say we cannot accept it impacts originality. So for that, I could not give you an answer like, okay, 5%, 7%, we accept. No. Whenever you are dealing with a university or a journal, you better ask their committee, right? But do it very carefully, because if you raise a question about AI in the first place, might be a little disadvantageous. But of course, openly you can ask, is this journal allowing like AI for grammar checking or language fine tuning, right? That would be the answer I could give, because I'm not really an AI enthusiast for writing papers, but design work pretty okay. When to use which style, narrative or parenthesis? So as I mentioned, of course, there is no specific way, like, because these are all written on papers, not something always said by a person to our face. So use a combination, right, to maintain the readability and interest to read. You could use it in a combination. Now, for example, I shared one thing where you use many authors to support one idea. Now, in such a case, of course, you can go with this parenthesis. Why? You are mentioning about 5 to 6 authors. If you are using the narrative style, then you have to say, okay, Tom and Jerry and Garfield and these people, bracket, in 2025 said this. It won't build interest for people to read, no, because we are going with so many names. So in such a case, definitely you can go with parentheses. But with regard to one author, maybe 2 authors, you can go with the narrative style, but as a combination. Okay. Access to presentations, organizers will answer. Okay, freely available AI and plagiarism detection software. Now I today what is it? I use something SEO. I can't remember it exactly, but there's one called DupliChecker. Uh, yeah, DupliChecker is there. Grammarly is offering a free plagiarism detecting software, and then there was something called plagiarism detector net, but in recent past I was searching for it because it was quite accurate with a yellow color logo. Plagiarism detector net, you can search for it as well, see whether it's available. So those are three things I could remember. What you can do is go to Google, search plagiarism checkers or plagiarism checking software. I would advise you to use not just one, use 2, 3 software, because in some cases I know that I originally wrote this, but when I put it to plagiarism software, sometimes they highlight it as plagiarism. They offer a link, but when we go to the link, it's not identical. So that's why I say don't always rely on one. Go and use a few, right? Um, right. I think is that the last? Okay. Then of course I have some comments. Okay. So with regard to network issues, I'm not too sure how you experienced it. So apologize for that. Something beyond my control. Uh, the climate fully changed at my place today, and uh, of course, we had to bear with that.
Okay, Mr. Sodara, thank you very much. So, it is the end of our 12th session of this lecture series. First and foremost, we extend our sincere gratitude to our distinguished resource person, Ms. Yasodhara Premaratna, for delivering such an insightful and valuable session. Your expertise and guidance have greatly enhanced our understanding of academic writing, referencing, and ethical research practices. We also warmly thank you all for all our participants for your active engagement and thoughtful contributions throughout the session. Your enthusiasm truly enriches this learning platform, and we look forward to your continued participation in future sessions. So, good day and thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. So in then a good day to all of you. So then I'm signing off.
Okay, thank you.